Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, 5 Strategic Recruiting at Any Size, 5 programs you can start building now. My name is Claire Alloway. I'm a part of the marketing team here at Jobvite, and I am so excited to be partnering with our faves, Bamboo HR, for this webinar. First off, a couple of administrative details. So all of your lines are muted. But that's just to avoid background noise. We would love your questions. We're going to get to as many as we can at the very end of the presentation. So chat those in the bottom left-hand corner of the chat box, and I'll be moderating throughout the webinar. So feel free to chat those in whenever they come to you. With that, I'm going to pass it over to our presenters to do an intro of themselves.
Wonderful. Thanks, Claire. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. Should be an hour full of fun with myself and JD. My name is Chad Rowbush. I am the Recruiter and Recruitment Marketing Manager here at Jobvite. Real quick, I've been in the recruiting industry, recruitment marketing industry now for a decade, as old as that makes me feel, and just super excited to be able to share some best practices, some ideas, and some things, tricks and tips that have worked for both JD and I over the years. So with that, I will kick it over to JD.
Thank you, Chad. I'm so glad to be here with Chad today. In fact, this is kind of a continuance on previous webinars or a previous webinar that we had done. So I hope you get a chance to check that out. We're going to continually, we really love talking about this idea of scalability because there are so many companies out there that need to know what they can do, small things they can do right now. So a little bit about me. I'm the head of talent acquisition at Bamboo over here. I've been doing this about a decade as well, and I've acted as both a third-party recruiter for boutique recruiting firms and very large corporations, as well as I've acted as an in-house tech recruiter. I've managed talent acquisition teams at some of these high-growth tech companies. And in the past, I serviced some Fortune 500 companies for some of these for the world's largest recruiting corporation. So the main reason why I like to do these webinars and why I love being involved in what we're doing over here at Bamboo is I really believe in empowering executives and HR leaders to focus on the human nature of human capital, and that teaching through experience. I really enjoy this aspect of teaching through experience, how a people-first approach is really dramatically impacting their bottom line. And there's some really cool things happening in the industry right now. And so without further ado, start jumping into what we can start doing in the industry that are scalable items. So the first thing that when we were getting together and Chad and I were building the content for this, it was this aspect that so many small and medium-sized companies, so many other people don't know where to start, and they feel like they need to try to do everything all at once. That's not the objective here today. The objective is to start building programs right now, no matter where you're at. You can start from here and build very scalable pieces and steps. Very often, talent acquisition teams and HR teams feel understaffed and stretched, and there are a lot of little things you can do right now. So don't wait until your organization is in the big leagues to build big league recruiting efforts. And you don't need endless time and money to do a really good job and find the right people for your company swiftly and comprehensively. So basically, these ideas are for organizations and recruiting teams of any size, and whether you're a team of 1 or 50, you should have some things you can start doing today. And with that, Chad, jump into our first program, referral programs.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate it. And yes, referral programs, one that is near and dear to my heart and something that is really easy for everyone to take advantage of, regardless of your size. So I'm going to throw a couple stats out there to you guys. Did you know that employee referrals are hired 55% faster than any other source of hire? And 88% of employers say that referrals are the #1 best source for above average applicants. So those two stats are very glaring to me, that 55% faster and nearly 90% of employers say it's their #1 best source. This really allows you to drastically reduce your time to hire. How many of us out there that is a KPI, and that's a metric that is kind of in the recruiting world is how long is a rec open? How long did it take you to fill it and find a great hire? So employee referral programs are huge to reduce the time and increase the quality. When you think about an employee referral program, you are asking people who already work for the company, already know the industry, know the culture, know expectations. And so they are referring individuals that they have likely worked with, are friends with, and can speak a little to their work ethic and personality. And you're just increasing that quality of life. You're building upon the culture that's already created. And to take it a step further, you're truly building a lot of trust within the organization. An ERP program shows the employee base that their opinions matter. Trust is created throughout the company when referrals are seen as a priority and taken seriously for all opportunities. It's very important that skill sets are met, and so that's something that we'll dive into here in a bit. But just having a voice and knowing that your employees are taken seriously when it comes to individuals that they would like to refer to specific opportunities. To kind of expand on how to get started on setting up an employee referral program, I always recommend having this part of onboarding and training. Have your new hires set up their referral profile so that when they arrive, they're automatically, one of the first things on their checklist is to sync up their LinkedIn profile with and something that we'll get into is, do you have a referral program system, a platform that you're utilizing, and can we sync that up with your employees' LinkedIn profile? Get the word out. Make sure your employees know where and how to see your open opportunities and the best way to submit a referral. If you don't have a platform and everything is manual, that's fine. But make sure that your employees feel very comfortable about how to find those opportunities, who to send resumes to, contact information, make those connections. And like I said, include it in your onboarding, whether it's a manual process or something that you have a system in place. Hearing that early, hearing it often, training everyone at the beginning of their tenure with your company, and then continuing to make announcements, whether it's through your all hands call or company meetings, sending out mass emails, just reiterating, hey, we have a program in place. Here's how you can get involved. Here's who you can send your information to, just so that they feel very comfortable with the program and how it's set up. Also, sharing the success. There really is no greater story than for referrers to get recognized for the work that they've done to help add to the team. So whether it's through social media, word of mouth, an internal email that's sent out, feature some success stories and really be able to publicly share that, here's how we operate. We like to hire individuals that are like-minded and within close networks, and obviously utilizing social media. So, don't hesitate to share opportunities, share those success stories through your social media channels. And finally, broaden your message. Don't just focus on one role. Employees love sharing the culture in which their company prides itself on, and being able to broaden your message and show some enthusiasm, show some positivity around what the employees are experiencing and the fact that they got some of their former colleagues or friends or family hired. That stuff's contagious, and so really being able to broaden that message and not just have one focal point is really going to expand that ERP program and have it take off or expand upon what you've already created. So those are a little bit of some tricks to get you started. And I think JD actually had a pretty good example that he wanted to share here.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. I think a lot of things when you spoke about, really getting the word out and making sure your employees know where and how and everything like that. This is something that I hope HR professionals and TA professionals are not scared of bringing this to executive teams and asking for time in company meetings, right? We've done that a couple of times, and we've had these aspects of our employee referral programs that we call it the RAFferal. I know it's a dorky name, but it's memorable, right? So we we train everybody about the positions that are key positions over here. And then if you have the most qualified referrals, then you're put into a raffle where we have different experiences for you to choose from. One may be a spa day gift card. Another one may be there's some zip lining adventures where over here in Utah there's a lot of things you can do outdoors. So there's quite a lot of things that you can do to bring notice to your program, and we shouldn't be shy to approach our executive teams to say, if this is vital for this to happen, let's talk about it in an all-hands meeting. Give me 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and let's really bring awareness to it. It's also just a great opportunity to educate people what they should be looking for these positions a little bit more deeply. So I just love what we've been able to do over here, and if you have any platform like that, just an idea, and hope for you to pick that up on.
Perfect. Thanks, JD. Also wanted to get back into a couple of other best practices that might help you get a successful ERP program off the ground, or to continue to build upon what you've already created. Build a framework within your ATS. And what I mean by that is, whether you have an ERP system built into your ATS or maybe you don't, there is likely a way for you to, put candidates into a collection or tag them in a certain way for easy reference. So, let the system work for you. Create a framework. And then once you've done that, start with the easy ones. A lot of us call them silver medalists. There's some other terms out there that might be more relevant for your world, but candidates who did really well in the interview process and just didn't get an offer. Maybe it was, budget fell through, timing didn't work out for whatever reason. Maybe they really were in contention with another super solid candidate, and for whatever reason, that you guys went with the other candidate. And so we've got those candidates that we want to stay in touch with, that we want to continue to communicate with. So start with those, because that's a really easy way to go back and touch candidates that have already been in the process, have likely been referred, and already have a good taste in their mouth around the company and the process in which they've been through. I want to teach members of the recruiting team. Like, that is kind of a duh, Chad, but too often, there's one person maybe that owns the process, and everything funnels through them. Well, teaching and coaching your team on best practices, if they do get asked questions on your referral program, and who to send resumes to, and what's the bonus look like, and is it monetary, or are there gift cards? Like, being able to coach and to train your recruiting team and your HR team on exactly how your ERP program works is obviously a kind of a no-brainer, but something that we sometimes forget. Creating a communication plan. Have a plan in regards to the frequency, the message content, the audience. Those are just really little things that are within our control, regardless of what size you are, regardless of your budget. Whether this is manual or automated, you can very easily set a very structured process to where every so often an email goes out. The content of that email is very specific to the audience. And then the communication and maybe the callback, the call to action, is also very specific based on the motive and the need and what you're trying to get in return from your message. And also, take a look at some more robust talent community tools. Whether that is something that your ATS does offer, maybe it's a standalone, maybe it's something that can be integrated within your ATS. We'll get into kind of, when and where should you really start to take another system into consideration if it is a manual process for you now. But really start to think about that as you really start to build out this program and it takes off for you. Having a system in place is really going to make your life a lot easier.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, Chad, because this is one of the things that I think too often we recruiting teams and HR teams will do a little bit too late. We can start vetting systems and looking into scalable solutions a year or two in advance from when we may need them. That way we know everything we need at the time that we need it, rather than frantically searching for a tool, frantically trying to understand how it would help us scale. start perusing things early on and really taking a look at what could be long-term scalable solutions after you look at your hiring patterns. And I'm so glad you touched on talent communities. In fact, I think we're gonna tee that up here in a little bit. But just to continue on with a couple of things that I would recommend on referral programs to avoid. One of the things that I noticed is I was actually helping out a local tech company out here that had never had a referral program. Actually, they have a lot of employees. They have a way to submit referrals, but not an official rewards program. And if you're just starting this up, I would counsel you to be cautious about setting up a reward system that is solely based on financial incentives, right? What we've done over here at Bamboo is we've made sure to relay this as a thank you, to make sure employees know that we're very grateful, but that the motivation and the objective should be much more intrinsic, that I want to help my friend or I want to help my organization rather than I want $2,000 or something like that, right? So when you're building a program, these reward systems don't need to be as costly. Start small and see where the need is and test it out. There was a time when we tested out higher amounts of a reward, and we found that it didn't increase the quality of referrals. It just increased temporarily the amount we got. So we got a flurry of activity right when we rose the referral bonus up, but then after that, it didn't really have any long-term change. Again, just showing that you're reinforcing the right messages, that this is a rewards program should be a thank you, and their incentives should be a little bit more intrinsically motivated. So that's just wanted to jump in there as you're starting a program on that. I'll let Chad take it from there.
Yeah, and real quickly, I'm going to try and speed up so that we can make sure that we get through all of these. So I do apologize for our long-winded talk tracks, but I've gotten to a point in an ERP program where, the cash reward kind of got stagnant. Like, not that people don't like cash, but sometimes think outside the box. Maybe as part of your referral program, you offer a charity donation to the referrer's favorite charity. Maybe you're in a place where you can offer like a half a day off or a full day off of work. Requirements can honestly be considered. It's going to free up your bandwidth. It's going to allow for your employees and colleagues to have clear understanding that they can't just send every single person that they know who that they've maybe met in their life as a referral and expect the recruiting team to find a good fit for them. Like, they need to have some relevancy there. And also, don't stay dark. If you keep the referral source up to date on how their referral is doing in the process, that they're probably touching base offline. And if everyone's on the same page, you're just creating a very positive and solid candidate experience. And it also, full circle, reiterates the trust level that you have within your organization, that you're keeping those colleagues up to date on how their referrals are doing. So just a couple of do's and all. So program 2, talent pools and communities. So what are these? You don't have to have a huge budget to make an executive plan. You can build talent communities regardless of the budget you're working with, the bandwidth your team has. And so why do talent communities matter? It helps reduce the time to hire drastically. Having these pools in place, just if you think about it, if you've had outreach to select candidates, and hopefully the bigger the pool, the better, let's be honest, then when it does come time to hire, you've already kind of created that relationship. Maybe you don't communicate often, but they obviously know about the company. They've maybe heard from you specifically through an email. And so just it allows for a great reduction in the time to hire. The cost to hire that individual is drastically reduced as well. If you're reaching out to a few candidates and, maybe you've shared resumes and profiles with hiring managers, and while everyone's on the same page that this is over time, this is a proactive approach, you don't have to, see the heartache on the front end of that we all know that it takes when, you have an urgency and you have no candidates lined up. That time to fill is greatly reduced, and that cost to hire is greatly reduced when you do have a top-of-funnel candidate pool. So those are just a couple of examples of why it matters to have that pool and that community, and also increases the quality of the hire. Again, to kind of circle back on some things that we've mentioned, if you have ever been in the position as a candidate where you've stayed in touch with a recruiter or a hiring manager over time, it really just helps create that trust level again. And so just giving everyone a lot more confidence in not only the money that's saved, the time that's saved, but that there's a bit of trust that's going to be already established before that person starts with your organization. So who doesn't want that, right? So a couple of things on how to get started. So building a framework within your ATS is going to be it's a huge tip and trick, because it's kind of an easy go-to, especially if you haven't really started this previously. And so you want to make sure that you're organized. Really just go in and really see, what is a couple of easy, quick steps that we can do in which you can create that framework, you can start easy communications, and really start to build out that pool and that community. Whether you're starting from scratch or you've kind of already touched the surface of this and you want to build upon what's already been created, going back in and looking at communications that have already been sent, going back to the team and really focusing on who's our target audience and why are they our target audience, and who has been high touched and low touched, really is going to not only help build the pool and community, but also take it to the next level if it's something that you've already created. Creating structure. I know I mentioned this earlier and want to circle and bring it back to light. If you use a naming convention, if you use tags, if you have the ability to create a collection within your ATS, absolutely do that, and make sure that there is a lot of structure around it, because a system, a database, is not going to really know the difference between marketing manager and manager of marketing and abbreviations for marketing manager. And if you're using all of these different tags and naming conventions, then now you've just created more work for yourself when you do want to go back and start that outreach. So having a very structured process in place so that everyone on the team is utilizing the same frequency, the same tags, the same naming conventions, is just going to allow for you to quickly pull those individuals and send them communications based on the audience. So definitely want to make sure that you've got something in place that makes sense for the whole team. Let's see.
Hey, Chad. Sorry, I know. Everyone probably experienced this, but Chad and I lost each other in the void of the interwebs. So glad to be back here, and I have been listening to where you've been at, and I love that you just jumped right into creating that structure. That's one of the things that when you're talking about the particular tags for different titles and everything. It's important that we're training members of teams as to how we're tagging things. And they're, again, very simple things that we can do. So I'm glad we're talking talent communities. It's something that's very underutilized here. And I just wanted to, we talked about giving an example here. At Bamboo, when we first started this, we didn't have a lot of robustness to our system. And so we created just a very particular tagging system with an asterisk, and make sure we trained other people. We condensed, we solidified things as they went, but it's mainly about just keeping those top of funnel people or keeping the right people in the right folders, and then continually training other team members, making sure you have it all together. So I'm glad you talked about that, about the organization thereof. You can do very small things right now and make sure you codify things in the right way. So grateful that you just jumped in there, Chad. Thanks for helping me out.
No problem.
The other thing is, as we're looking at teaching others to build a framework, we should be teaching best practices and using these best practices to keep in contact with people. They're very small things. Before you get a big system, one of the things that I did right when I started at Bamboo is I just made sure that on a calendar invite in 2 months, I had a follow-up and here's the list of people that I'm going to follow up with, right? As you get more advanced systems and your systems continually grow and change and improve over time, right? Jobvite and Bamboo are both continually adding more value to the things that they have. But whatever system you may have, it's going to continue to grow with you, but you can still start small and do very consumable things right now. You can build an excellent candidate experience in doing so too, if you just keep track of who you're following up with and when on that. And as you do so, you're going to build more and more long-term demand. So this is this idea of building a communications plan around talent communities. How often can you do it? Well, just start small. If you want to do quarterly updates in certain email groups from your applicant tracking system, from your talent communities, great, just do a quarterly update. Hey, here's the update on the marketing positions, or here's what's going on in the marketing team. We're so excited that you applied in the past. We hope you keep us in mind, and best of luck to you in the meantime. Those kinds of things. You can do a monthly share. So again, some of these ideas of what to share. Start looking at what you're doing in your company updates. Are there very cool things that have happened at your company? What major changes happened? What should they know about? What's some new content? And then what other channels can you use other than just communicating through your applicant tracking system in these email chains? You can do other social media platforms and build communities other places, right? If people have interest, you can create a group on a social media channel and say, hey, I want to work at Bamboo HR long term, and they can jump into that group and get more updates. We have an alumni network. It's a little bit like a referral and a talent community put together, and we have an alumni network at Bamboo HR where we can let people know. They know all about us. They know what we're looking for culture. They know what we're looking for as far as scalability. They're able to talk about some of the managers that they worked with over here, and they're able to refer people and build more and more of a community over time. So there's a lot of things that you can do if you think outside of the box, and they're very simple and cheap things as well. They stay on your radar, and you stay on their radar, and that's the main objective you're getting to, is that you're creating a top-of-mindedness where Jobvite or Bamboo HR or whatever your company is, it doesn't go away. So you're able to build something where they're consistently remembering you. So then, like we talked about before, look at purchasing a more robust talent community tool in the future. We have been recognizing this in the past here at Bamboo, and we had quite a lot of applicants last year, thousands and thousands, and so we need to make sure that we're buying the right talent community tools at the right times. So start vetting it earlier than you think you should. Even without a budget, you can look ahead and start planning ahead for future challenges and hacking some of those solutions early on. And in fact, I know Chad's got something really cool about that to say.
Yeah, so thanks, JD. So again, we probably sound like a broken record with us saying ATS, which is stands for Applicant Tracking System for anyone. Sorry that I think I kept calling it the acronym, but Jobvite offers an amazing tool that we call Engage. And not every applicant tracking system offers this, but it just having a tool in place allows for more robust reporting, ability to build out very personalized campaigns, send out newsletters, email campaigns, build landing pages. You can sync in referral initiatives in there, events that are going on that you want to share out to the masses. So having a system in place just allows me to really be able to think long-term and be more proactive in creating this content so that I'm allowing the tools and the systems to work for me. So, definitely something to think about once you do get to that point and you're ready to take on more if it is more of a manual process for you. And some, kind of a couple of key questions to ask yourself if you really are in a position to say, should we invest in an employee referral program and some sort of an engagement program to help us with this? What is the volume of referrals that you have coming in month over month, quarter over quarter? What is the time spent on specific communications, creating that messaging, creating that content? How much are you and your team spending on that? And then I think the biggest one is the headcount planning for the upcoming year. As those things start to roll down to us from leadership, if you see a drastic increase in the headcount for Q1, Q2, Q3 for the entire year, you're just really going to be able to set yourself up for long-term success if you have the ability to invest in a program that's going to do some work for you versus a more manual process. So just wanted to throw that out there, and I'll throw it right back to you, JD.
Love it. Thanks again. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we jump into right now is just a very swift do's and don'ts as you're building this program. Don't make promises you can't keep when you're talking about communicating with candidates. I think too often we have the best of intentions, but as long as we're just making sure that we're delivering on the promises that we have made, or just set the right expectations early on as to when we can get back with people, what the talent community or talent pool means, and what points of contact they should look forward to. So make sure you're making promises you can keep. Otherwise, you're accidentally burning bridges that don't need to be burned. Do start with simple communications. You don't need something that handles 1,000 points of communications and thousands of candidates. Sometimes you just need to start with the people that were in your final interview round that are great prospects for the future. Don't include unnecessary steps in the hiring process. That's going to make everything worse later on. If you bring somebody back and they're going through the exact same full round of hiring and then they're not chosen again, ouch. So make sure that you've managed expectations with managers to have a really good, clean situation when they come back. We've had this over at Bamboo where we've been able to hire many people last year, actually. I think we're at 10 people. Those were 10 hiring rounds we didn't really fully need to go through. We just brought some people back that were finalists from before, and we went through a shortened interview process and made some hires. It was great, and has a great impact as far as cost per hire and time to hire. Do ensure you have a communicative hiring process. Otherwise, they're not necessarily going to opt into a talent pool or talent community. And don't exclude the hiring managers. Help them know what you're trying to do. Make sure that they can see the impact, too. One of the things we talked about at Bamboo over here on our team is the importance of making sure managers understand, hey, if we do this well, you may only need to go through this kind of hiring round once this year, maybe twice or something like that, because we could build a community that just the same people come back that are great, excellent prospects, or we're building for their demand that way. And do help managers see that vision. So that's some of those takeaways there. And now we're going to jump right into employer branding and recruitment marketing, and we'll let Chad kick it off from there.
Cool. Yes. So this is very important. So let's get right into why it matters. When it comes to employer branding, when it comes to your outreach from recruitment marketing perspective, drive the conversation about your brand, especially before someone else do. When we think and talk about talent brand is what candidates and employees say about you and the company. Employer brand is what you communicate to employees and candidates and what they say about you. So really drive the conversation. So many things out there are corporate brand, Glassdoor reviews, product reviews, service reviews. People have a perception of who we are and what your company stands for. So make sure that you take control of the things that you can control. Own the story when it comes to the talent brand by creating positive outreach, creating positive experiences for your candidates, regardless of how far they make it in the process. Like own that and really take advantage of the fact that you have control over the content, you have control over the experiences that the candidate has, and so just something to take into consideration. It drastically improves the quality of hire. I can't say it enough that having a transparent process about your brand is going to help promote who you are, how people view you, and it's also going to attract the right people while at the same time kind of eliminate, if you will, those who aren't bought into your brand. So being transparent, creating that story, owning that content is not only going to attract the right people, but it's also going to weed out those who you don't want working for your organization anyway. So recruitment marketing just allows you to be proactive, whether it's for evergreen positions that you're always hiring for or just promoting your overall employment brand. Definitely something that you want to take advantage of. So how to get started, some more tips and tricks. And I love this stuff. So I'll try to speed my talk track up a little bit as I can get a little bit excited. But so the employee value proposition, like what makes you different? What separates you from your competition? What value do you bring to an employee that other employers don't? Like that's important to people. Like what are you doing that's going to make me want to come work for you? Especially with the unemployment rates as low as they are, it's a candidate's world out there. So having a very strong message and kind of separating yourselves can really pique interest. So what do you want people to feel and think when they see your advertisement, right? When they see your messaging and your content, like make sure that everyone's aligned with that positivity and that focal point being on what's important to you and your company. Focusing on the story, especially if you can't offer costly perks like your competitors, that's okay. That's not necessarily something that you should take into consideration. Everyone has a story to tell. Find ways to share that story, whether it's in person, you're posting it around the office for colleagues to see. That optimism will go a long way, and that positivity goes a long way and starts to speak volumes out publicly on social media, your career site, through emails, through word of mouth. It really talks to candidates and individuals who you might be wanting to reach out to or might be interested in your company. So just reiterating again, owning that story, owning that content, and making sure that the positive stories are always out there. And I believe, JD, did you have an example here of something that you guys have done?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do love that you talked about, when we were building this, you talked about focusing on stories, because that is truly something that most companies lack. They haven't taken the time, and it just takes a little bit of time now to start finding out what makes you different. So I'm so glad that you jumped into that and addressed that. And one of the things that, early on that we did over here at Bamboo is, when I was hired and I was talking about long-term strategy with our HR director, Cassie Whitlock, we talked about really what are the things that differentiate us, and we already had some great solid foundations. So I recognize we had a great advantage there, but it's what do your company values do? Do they set you apart? Do they really paint the pictures that need to be painted about what it's really like to work at your organization? And does it differentiate you? Making sure you're telling an authentic story that shows what it's really like actually brings a lot more engagement over time. So we have a regular discussion about values. We talk about our company values in different stages at the process here in our hiring, and our messages come from, or if you see any of our videos on our careers page about Meet the Bambooligans or anything like that, it's this aspect of painting a picture of what it's really like day to day and how that attaches to who you are and how you operate internally. So just wanted to I basically just reinforced the great stuff that Chad was saying there, but also this aspect of this next piece of how to get started is, okay, great, I have a message, Chad and JD, thanks so much. Now what the heck do I do? One of the things you should jump into immediately is team up with your marketing teams. We need to start, in HR and talent acquisition, we really need to start thinking like marketers. Catch up on reading, seeking to understand as quickly as we can, use their strategies and expertise, ask them to act as consultants. I mean, we should be acting as consultants on the hiring basis for their teams, and so there's nothing wrong with seeking their help to ask them to consult with us. There are some nuanced differences when you're looking for customers or clients as opposed to looking for potential employees, right? So, but still, ask them to assist if possible. One example we had is I wanted to make sure that over here we're running certain campaigns to build up a certain skill set, a certain division that we're building over here, and with a lot of hires for that on our payroll team. And so we're putting together ads for Facebook and Instagram and things like that. So keep your eye on it if you're in the area. But wanted to make sure it took some time to consult with them. Even though we had been doing this for a while, I still go back and consult with them to make sure I understand some of the nuances of how to place and market these positions. And again, there's some very easy things that you can do. And some of the other things that you can jump on really fast with some of these posts is that these tools are very simple and cheap very often. You can do things if you're a smaller company that don't take a lot of funding that you can explore, use say an R&D budget or something like that, and start creating a content calendar there, start doing some very basic and simple things. So the soft calendar that you can start launching early on has to do with just really thinking about what people need to know about the growth of your company. Where can they learn about it? And start thinking 6 months to 9 months in advance. Hey, we think we're going to have growth in these departments or divisions or something. And so, go to your marketing team, ask for creative resources and help for that. Start looking at when you can deliver those things. So high quality, regular cadence is really what matters there. You don't need to do it all of the time, just higher quality and making sure you have the right places to put that content. So what are the best ways to put those messages out there? You don't need to buy a long-term tool. Likely a marketing team already has some other tools to do this. LinkedIn messaging, also LinkedIn advertising, Facebook and Instagram advertising on their ads managers, retargeting campaigns through Google. You can do things on Glassdoor and retargeting campaigns and ask them about that. There's so many different things that you can do and quite a lot of different things that you can deploy swiftly.
This is me, right? Some do's and don'ts. So, in sake of time, I'm going to just highlight. There's several do's and don'ts when it comes to your employee brand, when it comes to recruitment marketing. So, I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the ones that I think are very relevant and some good takeaways. To make sure that we have time for Q&A at the end. So bear with me as I had a couple of examples. But when it comes to social media, utilize the company channels. It's fine to have personal, Twitter accounts and LinkedIn, obviously, and Facebook. But just be careful of what you're putting out there. If it is professional, when you're doing it through your personal channels, definitely heavily utilize what you guys have set up as an organization to funnel those communications. Just to, eliminate bias and kind of keep work and life separate there. And don't be trendy. While yes, that may work as far as what is trending on Twitter and using some of those hashtags. Don't fall into a habit of only trying to use what is cool out there, if you will, or what's trendy, because that might not last. We've all seen trends; they come and they go. So stick to what's important to your company, what's important to the audience that you're trying to reach, and make sure that your content is appropriate in those manners versus what's going to create the most buzz and get the most likes and the most shares and things of that nature. While that can help, yes, I'm not saying don't utilize that, but just don't follow trends blindly and make sure that you're definitely doing research and your due diligence before you start posting content out there. So just a couple of key do's and don'ts before we jump into some university recruiting with JD.
Awesome, thanks. I hope y'all listened very closely to that. I think that's one of the things that's a very big knowledge gap or new thing in talent acquisition is the actual functions of delivering employer branding and recruitment marketing content out there. So thanks so much, Chad. University recruiting, been around a long time. So I'm going to go through these pretty swiftly, but one of the reasons why I wanted to address this is very often I think we're chasing after old practices and we can have a bigger impact doing different things. So we understand that in order to attract good entry-level candidates, you need to be present in their minds. Many university directors will say that you have to be top of mind because they are exploring a lot of different things when they're in university settings and on campuses. And you get early access to candidates. So that's one of the reasons why so many companies have invested into these kinds of practices of having a robust university recruiting apparatus. You can have targeted recruiting, and that's one of the things that I certainly want to jump into in a little bit greater depth. So if you don't have anything up and running, go ahead and take a look at some very scalable things that we're going to talk about. How to get started here? First, build a communication list of all the people you need to reach out to. Just very simple things that, again, you don't need to do this tomorrow. Find out heads of departments for different business functions or whatever your organization handles. If there are students looking to go into nonprofit sector or something like that, then great. Find out who the heads of departments are, who the heads of career services are. Get on their radar and on their map, even if you're not operating immediately. Get an events calendar from these people. Map your hiring forecasts and kind of lay them on top of each other. Figure it out that if you're getting everyone else on board as to what you should be doing as far as very simple things to make sure your hiring is mapped to university recruiting seasons, that's a huge advantage that you can have. So make sure you're getting everybody on board to understand what you're trying to do and how you're trying to do it. And again, very simple steps early on. One of the things I would also recommend that you jump into very, very swiftly is build rapport with classes and groups. Find programs that align with your programs. Too often we will jump at gigantic university career fairs, and there are continuous problems with that. There are giant piles of paper resumes, and you just end up being a company that's lost in the crowd. So one of the things that we've done over here, our local University SHRM chapter, we go to their career fair, smaller, more condensed, very targeted for us. We go there on a regular basis and really have gotten some fantastic hires from it. In fact, Tawny Reed over here in our payroll team right now was a great hire from one of these kinds of events. So you can also host a very targeted event just for that program. You can host it there, the location, or invite them to your company for your targeted jobs and positions. Invite them to come to your office. And one of the things you should consider, and many companies or many universities are starting to look this direction, is looking at doing a virtual Q&A event. What is it like to work at your company? Or teaming up with, if your company is very small, team up with a local company as well that you can kind of co-market together, as it were, to the student populace there at a university or event. And that allows you to have a greater reach at less cost. So, again, how to get started here, be very careful and selective into where you devote your time and resources. A lot of these career fairs can cost quite a lot of dough, or at least enough that you could reallocate those resources into other endeavors or other programs we talked about here. And how best can you use your time is really something that you should continually consider. I think too often teams will want to chase after university recruitment because it's an exciting thing to get in front of a lot of people to do that, but it's not always the best way to use time and resources of a talent acquisition team. So instead of just sitting in a booth and trying to outmarket another larger company with quite a lot of swag out there, be careful about it. The next thing is make sure to prep your analytics. How many applicants did you actually get from each event? How many were hired? Look at the ratios to see if it really is worth the time cost and resource cost. And you can do this very easily in your applicant tracking system. Most applicant tracking systems will have enough if you just mark the right source inputs. You can have people apply right there in front of you. Instead of handing you a paper resume, great, here's how easy our career fair application is. Oh, you want to just apply with your LinkedIn? Oh, okay, great, go ahead and do that. So use this data as you are pulling people in. Use this data to determine which events are worth future time and resources. And then making sure you're doing some pre-event communication. I know that Chad wanted to jump in and talk about that.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I definitely wanted to talk about this. I've been to so many college recruiting and university recruiting events that just a couple of things that have worked for us in the past. Nearly every event I've ever been to, you get a list of the attendees and with contact information. And so taking time, utilizing your time wisely, and that's the big takeaway here. Don't utilize the event as just an opportunity to collect resumes. Use the event or the fair as an opportunity to interview. Send out pre-event communications. When you get that list from the individual who has organized the fair, you take those email addresses and send out a mass communication and ask for resumes if those aren't provided. Ask for job interests or, what their degree is going to be in. Like, take advantage of that information that's provided to you so that you can actually go into the event, the fair, with some individuals who you already know you're interested in talking to and have a great background and are getting a degree in where your company's industry is. And also, don't be afraid to host a Q&A before or after the event, especially if you do get that list of attendees prior to. You can invite them. Like, how cool would it be to get like this exclusive, come talk to me before the event invite as a college student. So, just utilize your time wisely, especially if you are provided a contact list of attendees prior to the event. And back to you, JD.
Awesome. So I hope you're getting some very fast takeaways of do's and don'ts and pitfalls. So I'll go very swiftly through these. Make sure you're not paying $2,000 to $5,000 or even in the hundreds of dollars. Many times it's the time drain that is hurting you. So make sure you're not spending time and resources to just sit at a career fair booth for recruiting and really sometimes for very little yield where people will just handing out resumes left and right to everybody in every booth or something. That's all too common. Do have universities come to you. We had a great experience over here at Bamboo where we had 13 of the directors of career services from everywhere in our state and a couple of other universities at neighboring states all come together and come to Bamboo, and we talked about the pain points we had of coming to career fairs and what would really help us. Their job is to help alumni and students really get the right jobs, and our job is to find the right people, right, for our end. So let's figure out new things that we can do that have less time, resource, setup costs, and other things. And that's where you'd be surprised how often universities are open to changing some of their practices. And we've had a couple just since we've done that last year that have adapted quite a lot as to having very specialized and specific career fairs that are targeted for certain groups. It's so helpful, and I think a huge evolution. So that helps you not cast too wide of a net. Sometimes we can chase too many places, and we're not targeting specific enough groups or majors. We're not having class lectures. That's one of the things that we have signed up for as well. Just specific targeted groups. We will go and have undivided attention of that student body because we're doing guest lecturing. So make sure you do target specific groups and majors. Don't send them don't send them into general hiring funnels, and make sure you're helping them really apply directly for a position right then or know which position they should be looking at to save you and them time later on. So, all right, and I'll pass it over to Chad as we breeze through some interview training discussion points.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. So just some key points on why interview training really matters. Number one, you're creating a cohesive brand. I think that's a huge takeaway. Any candidate wants to see consistency throughout an interview process. And so training your team members, your hiring managers up front is going to allow for that consistency and that cohesiveness. That is in turn going to create a very positive candidate experience. Being able to go back to a new hire and say, how was your interview process? And for them to say, everyone had great content, asked good questions, there was no repeat of questions. I think that's the biggest thing is too often we just expect teams to ask different questions when in turn they're asking the candidate a lot of repeats. And so interview training can really help to create competency guides and make sure that each person in the interview team and interview process has a different focal point to really get a 360 view of the candidate, which is going to equate to a very quality hire. So those are some key takeaways. One last thing I wanted to mention is through interview training, you can minimize biases. I know we've utilized in the past, Hartford does a great job, Hartford University, of creating some trainings for anyone to take to just identify the biases that you do have. As humans, we all have them. And the first step is really just recognizing and understanding that you do have them. And so just training can help to minimize those and bring things to light that individuals typically don't think about when they're going through an interview process. Sorry, trying to go to the next slide. Can someone advance the next slide? I lost my mouse there. So some things to help you get started. get buy-in or get a champion from leadership. Start from the top down. I can't give you enough examples of, when a leader has repeatedly messaged to the masses that interviews are important. Interviewing is important. These are individuals you're going to work with and sit right next to and be a part of a team with. So really getting that leadership buy-in is huge. Train your hiring managers. Start there. They can then train their teams accordingly, always be a viable resource for them just in case. Keep it all together. Use your applicant tracking system to keep notes, interview evaluations. Definitely want to collect all the information that is being collected around each candidate so that the hiring manager can make a sound decision on moving to an offer or not. And teach the most important basics. Reviewing goals and during the kickoff call with the hiring manager, just making sure that you reiterate what's important, why we have an interview process in place, and some key initiatives that are going to help us drive the quality of hire at the end of the day. Really quickly, because I know that we're running low on time, just some quick do's and don'ts. Review the practices often. You meet with the hiring manager early. Sometimes they get away from some of the things that were must-haves for them as they start to interview candidates, and those biases creep in. So reviewing practices early and often. Sticking to a structure can work within certain means. Don't force the process. Create some consistencies and some structure, but know that every process is a little bit different based off of certain variables. So don't force it, but do create some sort of structure. And for some companies and some teams, hiring an interview is always at the forefront. So training all of your team members. One thing that I've run into is hiring managers utilizing the same team members over and over and over, and that creates interview fatigue. It's a real thing, and it really starts to create negative feedback, negative opinions of candidates. So having everyone trained and ready to go is really going to help us, get away from interview fatigue and allow more team members to get involved with hearing their voice on potential hires of their future teammates. So, try to wrap it up. I think we're on takeaways with JD.
Awesome. Hope you heard very closely there. Interviewing's been around a long time, but we need to make some big changes and make sure we watch those things like interview fatigue. So as far as takeaways and hopes that Chad and I have for you, the size of your team or budget really isn't the issue if you have the right approach. So again, make sure we're not chasing all things at once, but we're starting small, starting well, and just executing on a plan. So again, start simple, start today. There's very simple things that you can do. Do what you can now and then plan for when those execution points may come in the future. Be nimble. If you look at agile project management, really look at how you can react later on, but also set everything up for success in the future. One of the things that's awesome over here at Bamboo, we have a recruiter in charge of each program, and they own that, and I help guide them along as a project manager, and we are just very good about moving the way we need to move and as fast as we need to move at the right time. So again, just have a plan. You can execute on that in very small ways for now. And building these programs now is going to set you up for success in the future. A year from now, you are going to be so grateful that you started building a plan and researching the right tools. You have all the data that you need in order to set yourself up for success truly. It is a cycle. Hopefully it is a virtuous cycle where you continue to build the quality of your recruitment operation, and everybody wants to work at your organization. So, and with that, I think we're going to jump over to questions if we have time and if you have time.
Exactly. Great. So we know that we got a little late of a start. We had the sound hiccup, the audio hiccup. So if you guys are able to stay on for a couple more minutes, we're going to answer a couple of questions. But we are also going to send you the slides, the recording, and if you want it, we've got the HRCI and SHRM activity IDs that are going to be in your inbox tomorrow morning. So if you do have to jump off, I know recruiters, you guys are the busiest people in an organization, in my opinion. You may need to jump off. So with that, let's get to some questions. Okay, from Charlene. We've got a question about referrals and more precisely the moment at which you give the reward. Is it better to give it right away to entice people to refer, or when the referred employee has been hired and has done some time with the company?
So in my opinion, this is Chad, if you have a program set up that it's a monetary bonus, I like to split it so that they get to reap that reward immediately. From day one, they get, let's just say it's $500 is the referral bonus. They get $250 the day that the referral starts, and then they get the other $250, call it at 90 days. So that way that individual stays for a little bit of time and kind of eases that on the company side. So I like to split it so that they see the reward immediately, but then the individual is with the company for a little bit before the second half of that bonus kicks in.
JD, thoughts?
Honestly, I don't have extra thought because Chad made that perfectly. No, it's great. Like there's different times. That's all. Like certainly wait for bigger rewards and everything like that. But no, very apt point. Great.
Awesome. So we have a question from Alicia who asks, can you please confirm the name of the university that was recommended for interview trainings? JD?
Well, I think it was actually Chad that talked about that, right?
Oh, and Chad?
I talked about the Harvard University creates great trainings and surveys and question sets for you to take around implicit biases. So that was what I was referring to in regards to, so Harvard University, you go onto their website, or if you just Google implicit bias, there's definitely going to be a link for Harvard University to open up your viewpoints on how to identify the biases that you do have, and we all have them as humans, and so I would recommend checking that out.
Awesome. Okay, a question from Susan. How do you recommend doing a targeted campaign to recruit surgeons? They do not use the normal recruiting and job posting services. And she followed up to ask, or just in general, more targeted campaigns for positions that are not normally, quote unquote, public. Guys, any suggestions to find those talent communities that are harder to find?
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the main points is to try to research where they are at. Like, there are some audiences and candidate personas that are just not on some tools. We found that in no matter what kind of industry you're in, there are ways to find people. Sometimes you just got to figure out where they end up being. Well, one of the things we looked at was, okay, well, these types of candidates are on LinkedIn only about an average of 18 minutes a month, whereas they're on Facebook about the average of 53 minutes a day. So instead of like trying to source people on Facebook, let's just make sure we have cleverly placed advertisements. And there's a lot of things that you can do to parse down who you market to in these tools. So again, let's go back to your anybody that has some marketing background with ads managers and things, you can do a lot of targeted advertising there to different groups and interest groups and everything like that. Chad, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would agree 100%. Just to kind of piggyback on that, utilize your network. You obviously, if we stick to the surgeons as the target audience here, you clearly probably know some surgeons that you have a good relationship with. Go talk to them. Where do they hang out? If they're not on LinkedIn, if they're not on social media, they've got to have some sort of a community that they are talking to share and make recommendations and get advice. So use your trusted network and not in a way that you're going to go and just start blowing these individuals up in regards to your messaging, but giving you some ideas of where you might be able to go and spend your time on those messages. So utilize your trusted network.
Fantastic. We have probably going to do one more question, and then I think I'm taking advantage of your everyone's time after the top of the hour. But last question from Megan. On university recruiting, who is the best team to bring to an event? Marketing, executives, past interns, alumni? It sounds like her company has recently started this initiative.
Very cool. Very cool. I would say, if I may, I'll just jump in here real fast. I'm sure Chad's got some great things on it too. So ideally, it is the team that you have targeted for, right? If you need more people in your marketing funnel, you bring members of the marketing team that can talk about what it's like their day-to-day. If you are going to a STEM fair for technical positions, you do everything you can to bring a couple members of the development team. That is going to relay so much of the message across, and if you're very targeted, it's great. It is always great to have an executive there. It's always great to have a leader of the organization there. If they can do that, that's great, because people need to get a sense of their leadership and leadership style and really picture themselves working there. And you do that not through just contact with the recruiter, but through the types of teams that they would be looking into. So that would be the main tip I would give. Chad?
Mm-hmm. Yep, and agree absolutely. Only other two things I would add is if you are just starting this and haven't really hired new grads in the past, bringing individuals from that specific team so that those candidates, you obviously have a target audience that you're trying to hit, and individuals that work on that team or in that practice to be able to speak to their day-to-day and the relationships they create and how they interact with colleagues and customers, or the technologies that they're using is really going to resonate with the students. If it's something that you have done in the past, I have seen tremendous success with being able to take individuals who graduated from that university. Obviously, if they're within the team or the group or the practice that you are trying to target, that's just a bonus. But to let them go back to their alma mater and speak to these students, and the students be able to relate in that way to them, just really has had a lot of value. So that would be my input there.
Fantastic. So thank you very much to everyone who was able to join us today. Thank you very much to JD and Chad for, I think, an excellent presentation. Just to recap, everyone's going to get a copy of the slides, the recording of the webinar, and then if you want it, the Sherman HRCI activity IDs as well. If you attended the webinar, that's what we give to you for you giving us your time this afternoon. So thank you very much to everyone. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Bye.